I dug out this old portrait I drew from 2011 and all I can say is that it looks bland, plain, flat. Sorry old me, but the good news is that now I can pinpoint the reasons why this portrait looks, for the lack of a better term, bad. And how we can fix this by redrawing and improving this illustration. If you can relate to this, you don't wanna miss out on this video because I will provide some simple tips that you can do right now to improve your shading. Before we get to that, we need to fix the facial proportions first. It seems that I went for a realistic face here, and the first thing I noticed immediately is that the eye nearer to the camera is misaligned and is positioned a bit further. Now in realistic proportions, the width of the nose is the same as the width of the eyes. So in front view, the distance between the eyes is one eye width apart. However, since this drawing is in 3/4 view, some bits of the nose are hidden. So what we'll do is align the corner of this eye at the tip of the nose. If we adjust this drawing, it'll look like this. Now it looks like the face has been squished. That is because the nose is way too small for the realistic style. Probably because I'm used to drawing anime style where the characters have very tiny noses. One way to see if there's anything wrong with the drawing is simply flipping the image horizontally. Now we can see that the opposite eye is way tinier as well, and it's not because of the perspective. The mouth seems sunken as well. It should be protruded a bit further. Let's do a redraw. To construct the head, let's use the Loomis method. I have explained this method in a previous video, so feel free to check it out if you're interested to learn it. We're going to make the nose and mouth a bit larger in this drawing and make sure it's appropriate to the proportion of the eyes. See how I aligned the eyes by the corner of the nose while also making sure that the contour of the face is followed. I also had to do a quick Google search for Japanese yukata, which made me realize that the overlapping bit on the chest in the old drawing is the wrong way around, so we're going to fix that in this new sketch. When sketching the hair, I made sure to pay attention where the hair is being pulled and draw the strands in the proper direction. My favorite bit is the floopy ponytail. Now we can add the bangs that are wrapping around the face. Let's add some quick ink and flat color so we can start shading. Shading can vary depending on your style, but for this we'll be focusing on what I usually do. Going back to the old illustration, you can see that I did add shading, however it didn't help adding dimension to the subject. That is because it lacked contrast. When I was new in painting, I was afraid to use dark colors because I might mess it up and it will end up like you slap mud on it rather than adding shading. What we're gonna do when we shade this new illustration is use a different hue. This is important, let me explain. If you see here, when we were adding some highlights on her face, we used the same hue, only lighter. However, the face still looks flat as a result. You can see that I did the same in the old illustration. I used a slightly darker version of the skin color for shading. Now let's add a bit of a purple hue on the dark areas of the face using a soft brush with around 30% opacity. Just by doing that, we've made a huge difference with contrast. Now this is where new artists would panic, especially when they add more shading, but hold your nerve. We're far from finished, so let's focus on refining it. One trick I do is add a bit of a soft red in between the shading and the highlight so that she doesn't look pale or sickly. To help you with facial shading, you can search some portrait lighting references. I'm using a technique called short lighting in this illustration where the main light or key light is shining on the far side of the face. This is my reference. I'm not following it closely, but it serves as a guide on where I should paint darker shading. Rule of thumb when it comes to shading, start big and go smaller. Use large brushes to plot out where the main shading and highlight, and use smaller brushes as we go deep into the details. Take your time with this. Unlike cell shading, painting really takes some practice. Some artists use different types of brushes on the face, but I just use this round watercolor brush. Although I do adjust the opacity and the softness of the brush to achieve the texture and dimension I want. I used to do lineless illustrations in the past, but my style has evolved since then, and now I just reduce the opacity of the line art. It's actually faster doing it this way. In some cases, I will remove the line art on some parts like the hair so I can soften the edges and paint in some strands so it looks more natural. I like using cool colors when it comes to shading, usually purples and blues. It looks more natural that way. I have the Japanese yukata image references inside so that I have some guides on how I should shade this particular outfit. Let's manually draw some checkered patterns on the yukata, trying my best to conform the lines to the folds of the outfit. It's one of my favorite things to do. It has a meditative and therapeutic feel to it. It just makes me feel relaxed. This looks okay already, but in order to make this more appealing and pop more, let's add some ring light. This type of light is just a small light usually positioned behind the subject so that it creates an outline which helps them stand out from the background. It's one of the most common techniques used in movies. For this illustration, I'll be using blue for the rim light just to counteract the predominantly red palette, which will help her stand out further. In order for us to check how well we did with the contrast, all we need to do is apply a grayscale filter on it. You can easily tell because the highlights are light and the shadings are dark. If it looks flat, you would need to make some adjustments. We're nearly done with this. The next thing we'll be doing is take advantage of the fact that we're using digital media, which means we can do some color adjustments and make it look even better. First thing I do is create a layer on top of everything with blending mode set in Add Glow on Clip Studio and apply a soft yellow on the bright areas to enhance the lighting further. Next is create another layer on top with the blending mode set in Multiply and add a soft dark blue on the shadows. This will make the shadows darker and add more contrast. Then I will apply some adjustment layers depending on what I'm envisioning. For this, I'm using Tone Curve to add more contrast to the overall drawing. Then I'll add color balance to make the shadows a bit cooler and enhance the lighting further. Let's fine-tune this by adjusting the opacity of the adjustment layers. For the final touches, I'll add another Add Glow layer on top and just add a light gradient on where I think the light is to add some bloom effects, and then add another Multiply layer to add a dark gradient opposite to it. I think we can call this done now. I know it looks way different from the portrait I drew in 2011, but it just goes to show how far my skills have gotten when it comes to drawing principles to digital painting and shading. It only took me 14 years. I don't know how encouraging this is to new artists, but hey, if a dummy like me was able to improve my art, I believe you can too. If you like to learn more ways to shade the face, check this video tutorial right here.